uh to be anything on camera right now. Like, just be comfortable,
Mhm.
if you want to sit far away or lay down or whatever, like be
Okay.
as cozy as you can. um I usually pre-reading will do some invitations for anyone who wants to be a part of the reading, that's like in I usually qualify that with being in good relationship with you. So in the spirit realm, people who are on your side, ready, like, in your corner, essentially. Um, Anyone come to mind that you'd like to invite into the space, like ancestors or guides that you've been working with?
Mm, Michelangelo comes to mind. Uh,
Michelangelo, the artist,
the
or
no,
the angel?
the angel. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Sorry,
like
I'm like,
sorry,
okay, that's
let's
really
do
interesting. You guys have really, I'd love to hear about that relationship.
it. Yes.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that relationship though. Do you work with him as an angel
So
entity?
I am not sure. Like, I really don't know. Actually, no, it's not him. Is it Raphael? It's Raphael. Okay, so let me tell you the story.
Yeah.
My dad, of course, my dad, I want to call in. He's
Okay.
always been like a part of my journey and stuff. He died 5 years ago now.
Okay.
And he was a big part of me like starting my business and like launching, like just his death actually, just in that realization. So
Mhm.
him and I was on this walk as we were trying to figure out, because we lived in like 20 years, we lived in Georgia. And then I was like, all right, it's time to move home. Like, we started our businesses, my husband and I. And I'm like, nothing's really keeping us here. And I'm the oldest of five. I'm really, I wanted to be around my sisters and stuff. And so, anyways, I had this like big thing where it was just like, is this the right thing? Like, we were buying this house, we were selling. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I just need to clear my space. Like, I'm going for a walk. And like everything was in alignment, right? Everything. I mean, like all the signs. I couldn't have asked for signier signs, but I did. So I was just like, so I went on this walk and like I always saw numbers like right around that time. It was 3 years ago now. Yeah, it was 3 years ago. And right around that time, I kept on seeing like threes were always the number. Threes were always the number. And I was on this walk by myself, listening to my Grateful Dead. That's what I always do, like on this, whatever, 5 mile, 6 mile walk in the woods. Anyways, I'm coming back and I see this guy across the stream, and I had to cross this stream because the bridge was out. And he was like, do you need help? I'm like, no, right? Of course. No, I don't need help. No, I don't need help. Well, I fall and like my phone, like everything. So he comes running over and he grabs me and we just start walking. Like everything is soaked. I'm barefoot. And he, like, we're talking and he was like, well, I just opened up this. And it's this like big black dude where you wouldn't see in North Georgia typically, right? Like, truly, he was such a soft soul though. Like, he was such a cool person. And he's like, I opened up my crystal shop and like all this stuff. Anyway, so
Hell
he's
yeah.
walking behind me and like we're just quietly walking. And all of a sudden he goes 333. And I'm like, what? He was like, like three. And then he said like 333 chakra Lee. And I'm like, did you just say what do you? He's like, I don't know. He's like, I'm just getting this. And his name was Raphael. His name is Raphael.
Okay.
So this is all coming. I'm like, was it Michelangelo? No, it was Raphael.
Okay.
So he like, and everything around that, of course, the threes, right? I'm like, what are you talking about? And then when he said Lee, he called me Lee, even though it was like chakra, and then he called me Lee. I'm like, my family only calls me Lee. Like, they call me Leah and Lee. Anyway, so that was interesting. And like, even when, so my dad's name is PJ, we call it PJ, Patrick Joseph. And when we were looking at this house, I was like, oh, it's a
That
fixer
is
up.
like such an Irish name.
I
Patrick
it's
Joseph Jameson. Is that his last name as well?
Smith is his
Okay.
Smith.
I was like, Jameson on top of that. Okay.
This is my married name.
Okay.
But so yeah, completely in Buffalo, it's all like Irish Catholic, Polish, like that's
Okay.
where we are. Um, so when we were looking for houses and stuff like that, it was a fixer upper. Anyways, it was whatever. And this was the other thing that I was like on the walk for. I'm like, is this the right thing? Even though I knew, like, so the people here were like antiquers, and
Mhm.
they had tons of stained glass window in here, like everywhere, even like on the we still have some like on the inner like parts of the, and they got all of their stained glass windows from St. Patrick's Cathedral. Like I was like, all right, Dad, all right, but I did need a sign or a sign. So that's all that to be said. Archangel Raphael is somebody, and this is what I see too. It's like, you know, even I remember one day when I was like searching for something before we even any of this happened. I went to the church and there was this archangel. And again, I don't know a lot of like who these archangels are, but they like just come sweeping in, and like they're very vivid. Um, and I feel them more, you know, I see a little bit, but like the vividness is like a feeling of just like I'm totally taken care of and protected.
Yeah.
I have felt like during my journey, like my great grandmother, who I knew when I was growing up, she passed when I was around like 11 or 12. But I was very, very close with them, both my great grandparents. And then my grandma Smith, my dad's mom, like, so those are the three people that I've really like felt the most. I've always said like my great grandmother was my like guardian angel. Like I got into so much shit when I was younger. I don't know how, like I like where I'm at. So yeah, so that's that.
Grandmas are good for that. I was kind of our grandparents for our kiddo live across the country, and I was kind of, I guess, what's the word, lamenting that like they need a place where they can go and like take all the things out of the cabinets and play grocery store, and like, and it's not our kitchen. And grandmas just, they just love it. They're just like, keep going, do it again.
Oh my gosh, I know.
So as you were talking, I definitely, your dad definitely felt dad, and grandparents. Dad was very clear. Um,
Oh,
a little bit of a block with Raphael. I think that maybe, but not archangels in general. So
yeah,
I'm wondering if it was less that that person was, it was like was a spirit like embodied, and more of like like just kind of a conduit for that moment for you, like just a
yeah,
portal for
yeah.
some information you needed to hear. But everyone else is like, yeah, jazzed to be here, and yeah, shown up. So we have a powerhouse. I kind of had a feeling, because I felt really drawn to pulling out my ancestor card. It's this this chick, Magic Hour, she makes divine candles. They're all like blessed and whatever,
Magic hour.
powerful candles. I'll just say I used the fertility one, and I didn't even get to the bottom of it before I was pregnant. So um so they're I use her candles a lot for different things, but this one, the candle, I was like, are you sure? Because it's on my ancestor altar and it's kind of like dedicated for that space, and I was like, no, bring that one out. So I had a feeling ancestors were already going to be playing a role in this, and which probably, you know, I haven't drawn any cards for you, I haven't gotten into this, but just by the feel of it, it's going to be a pretty like pivotal foundational year for you. Is kind of just like, hey, they're all showing up and they're ready to back you up in whatever is coming up here. So the deck that felt like that was calling to me is the Gentle Tarot. I'm not sure if you're
Mm,
familiar with this.
no.
The creator is queer and indigenous, from Mexico. I'm not sure what the indigenous land names are, but they created this when they were living in Alaska. So it has like, it's a very like earthy, um, I don't know, one with nature, I guess, like
Huh?
best white person interpretation of it. Um, but it's been one of my, I love, it is a gentle communicator, and but I think it's really important to remember that being gentle and being true are not in opposition to each other.
Yeah.
And so, we can work with truth and we can speak truth and we can hear truth without it like crushing us. Um, I very much so you'll hear me throughout this. Like, hope you have a notebook. I saw you jotting
Yeah.
some things down already.
Yep.
Um, I just share what comes to mind. Sometimes it's like stories, sometimes it's like pop culture references or songs or books or resources. So just to like prepare you for that. But um, I very much grew up in a family where it was like, uh, truth hurts. And, I'm the only one willing to tell you the truth. And it was always like mean, it was
Yeah.
like bullying. Um, so just kind of like touching on that, this is a gentle deck, but in a gentle, message. And the cards are very, I don't know, there's something just really soothing about them, no matter what card you draw. And, and I think it's just that really important reminder that truth and truth telling does not have to be something that like cuts us or like leaves us bleeding on the side of the road, you know? Is there anything in particular that you're like looking forward to or concerned about with this year?
A lot of transitions. The
Yeah.
daughter's going to college.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of feelings around that. I've
And
I
does she know where she's going at this point, or is that still kind of up in the air?
It's still up in the air. It's just
Okay.
between two, but it's within the like close enough vicinity here, and that's her choice. So I mean, just that. I really, really want to do some like more traveling. I feel like I haven't traveled enough. That's my joy. That's my fun. Is just like spontaneous, even just like weekend little like getaways or like one day out in nature.
What is it about travel specifically that like really appeals to you?
It's more about the like I love all of it, but it's like really the car ride. Like I love like
You're a journey person.
so it's always been where it's just like I just want to go hike and I want to, of course, the earthy that you're like, this is very earthy. I'm like, of course, I love hiking and I haven't had enough of it in my life over the past year. So yeah, that's something that we used to do a ton. I used to do a ton of that with my boys when we were in Georgia. We were in like the North Georgia mountains by the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, cool.
Um, so since we've moved home, I feel like I haven't even done it as much. I know I haven't. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, like this year is, there's something about it. I feel like this past year has been preparing me for what's coming. I don't know what it is, but
I think that is, I mean, that's definitely the layers that we're moving through right now. A lot of the systems that I tune into, like human design and astrology,
Mhm.
all talk about 2027 being kind of the birth of a new paradigm.
Mm.
And it's obviously, shifts don't happen all at once, but it's the same astrological like um planetary positions as like around the Revolutionary War. So just kind of thinking about that kind of energy. The Some of the conversations are like that this is going to be more of a spiritual revolution than a bloody revolution,
Mm.
and we can only hope for that. Like I think that many people individually even in communities are aiming themselves in that direction. They're I was just listening to someone today. She has a podcast on human design, and she was like talking about how, she's like, every people are just moving toward a place of bigger, better integrity. And she's like, forget, I only want to shop local. I only want to buy from companies that are in integrity with themselves. And like, there's that kind of rising consciousness. And, And so I think, yeah, I think this past year and this year and the next year are really, they really are building on each other. But this is the year of the hermit. So it's a really fascinating build because last year was the year of strength. And so we went from like this, like seemingly like, like muscle man to like heavy internal work. And they're not opposing each other. They're actually really complementary because we need internal infrastructure strength as well,
Mm-hmm.
not just external movement through the world or the things that we built over the last over 2024, but being a collective hermiting is really interesting to me because it is an invitation. It's an invitation and an energy, like the energy, the desire to be somewhat reclusive is there. My partner and I are both just like, yeah, let's never leave the apartment. But with human design, I'm actually at a stage where I'm like, I have two hermiting things in my personality and then this as well. So like the desire and pull to hermit is like really strong for me. I just want to be, even when I came home today, he was here and I was like, go away. Just leave my space. He was like, do you want me to leave the bedroom? No, just, I don't care where you are. Just don't be in the apartment. So just like keeping that in mind that there's an invitation over us to really dive deep into ourselves. And uh that comes with its own challenges of like, especially if there are parts of ourselves we've been avoiding for any period of time. And often those are the parts that are shadowy, like they're parts of us that we don't like, or they're memories that we have that we don't want to think about, or they're relationships that have that are unresolved and need attention. Sometimes that's an unresolved relationship even with ourselves, like we just don't even know how to be in relationship with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's true for anyone who's grown up under capitalism, because we are not allowed, and white supremacy, all these oppressive systems, we're not allowed to know ourselves. We're not allowed to, we're cut off from our intuition from, the minute that the disruption happens between us and our birthing parent, like
Yes.
whether that's, we go to daycare or we go to preschool or we go to school, or whenever that starts to happen, then we are much more susceptible to like the system's conditioning of us. And so I'm curious how familiar you are with human design, if that's a part of your like horizon right now.
Mhm.
If you know what I mean when I say that.
I do. So I had my human design read. Is I came up and I couldn't remember if I gave that. I was like, I don't know if that was the right time that I gave him, but I think it was. I'm a projector. That's what came up. A
Yeah.
projector. I can't orchestrator.
Okay.
I think that.
I guess, like, what does it mean to you? Like how do you interact with it at all, or do you?
I feel like I have been more as far as just like the importance of like waiting for the invite, and like that's what I've noticed. I would say more over this last like year that it really just like clicked of like when I receive an invite of just like, hey, you should create this like as a coach, or like create this program, like that's what I really want to do. And when I do, like people show up. I mean, like people really show up, and I burn myself out trying to like, like pull people in like the traditional way. So
Right.
anyways, that's how I look at it, is like waiting for that invitation. But in the meantime, like having fun and being with ease, and like um taking care of my body and listening to my body. Cause that's the other thing I think over this past year, really, right? I have always prided myself on like I work hard and like I grind and like all this stuff, even though I was doing it with fun and ease. I was still doing a lot, and I was trying to like fit into these boxes of like, I should be doing this and I should be doing this. And I got this really strong calling to just be like, I remember I was like, okay, for the summer, I have this, and this lined up as far as like workshops and like retreats, like day retreats and this and that. Like, then I have to have this happening. And then I'm like, and something was within me was like, Leanne, take 2 weeks, go to the cottage. My family has a cottage here, with your boys, and just fucking be like, just do the bare minimum. And I fought with myself. I'm like, no, I should be doing this. I'm missing opportunities, da da da. And I wasn't trusting myself. And I remember just like really getting into, I'm like, no, go. Like, and so I did. And I felt at peace and I felt at ease. There was a little bit of conflict, but there was like more joy. Right. And
Yeah.
like, that was the other thing that was like, oh, because I had my human design read like years ago, and now it's just like I laugh because I'm like, it's sort of slow on the uptake for me. Like, I have to experience a lot, and then like, oh, this is what it
Yeah.
meant.
Well, and that's the 3 in your personality line. You are an experimenter, so you literally have to learn by trying and failing. And so like and failing being as positive a part of the journey as succeeding, because
Mhm.
it has a lot of information for you. And um and so I was listening to this interview with someone, and she was talking about parenting with human design. And she and I think 2 of her kids and maybe even her partner all have 3s somewhere in their personality lines. And so they developed this practice every night at dinner where they just ask, like, what did you fail at today? So it's
Yeah.
really normalized. And then they can be like, well, I tried this and it didn't work. And then they can talk through, like, what didn't work and how did it not work, and like I can go through all of that together. And it's like, see how much we learned from that experience, and like now we know like more for the next time we do something, just in the
Yes.
same way scientific experiments work, right? Like we do something because we think that's what might work, and then we get all this information and we're like, okay, going forward we need to like try this type of experiment with these type of elements and see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I asked because I saw that you're a projector, and projectors tend to um basically anyone who's not a generator or manifesting generator tend to have, I would say, more layers of conditioning because they're trying to survive in a generator managing world. And projectors especially, like, how to say this, you're like the voice of wisdom. So um you need that deconditioning process, which it sounds like that's what you've been doing, your journey of
Mm-hmm.
deconditioning. But you need that because we need you, essentially. So the process of the hermit, kind of coming back around to that, is um, especially important for you because your voice is so powerful in the world. And so you need to get really, really like stable internally
Mm-hmm.
for like what's coming next, whatever that looks like. I'm gonna show you your spread. It's a little challenging because I have not yet figured out the like how to have a simultaneous camera going. But can you see most of it or all of it or none of it?
Yeah, I can see most of it. I can see, yeah,
Okay.
I think there are like a couple
I
outlines.
really just kind of want you to get a feel for it.
Got
It's a
it.
little hard, I know, to see the cards, but we will go through them all.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. Um, all right. So I do want to start with the overall theme, and we might come back to it because sometimes as I go through the cards for the year, it informs the theme a little bit more. But it seems to be kind of on point with what we were just talking about. So it's the Emperor,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the Emperor stands alone, if you will, here. Um, but it is just kind of for me this sense of like, oh my god, abiding comes to mind for whatever reason, like that. It's like concept of it's like it's not waiting, because waiting is usually pointless except for whatever it is you're waiting for to arrive. Like um there's no like meat to the waiting. Like abiding is like, yes, I'm waiting for something, but in that process of waiting, I am like growing and changing. There's like this is like a feeling that is really hard to capture
Yeah.
for some reason. It's like it's like deeply spiritual and contemplative and growing space that's happening in that waiting process. And the reason I got all like weird about abiding, because it's like such a church word to me. Like it's like old hymnals and uh like yeah, like waiting for God. But it's like this, like it's like there's something really sacred to the process. Maybe
I agree.
that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Um okay. All right, January is the Chariot. So these let me just make sure. These mostly coincide with the traditional tarot, but when they don't, I will let you know like what that number is or what the minor arcana is. So if you want to, as you're going through this, if you want to do your own research on it, I think that can be really powerful because you can look at different perspectives on that specific theme. Um, what I usually suggest for people though is to like, if you're reading something, just like skim it. If you have your own deck, just sit with the card, like maybe pull that card out for the month and let it be visible so that you can be with like more of the like the intangible, like just the feelings that it creates, and you can explore those. But if you're reading something, just skim it and see kind of like what words pop for you. Like some of them are going to feel really dead and like boring, and then a couple are going to pop up and you're going to be like, whoa, that hits me out of left field. Like that, just write those down and let those kind of be what guide you for that.
Okay.
So the first one is 7 in the major arcana. It's the Chariot.
Okay.
And the other thing too is like major arcana, it tends to be, there's just more of a punch to it. It tends to be more solid in my experience. The minor arcanas are a little less intense. I won't say like background noise, but they're more like supporting characters, whereas like the major arcana is like the protagonist. So with the year ahead spreads, what I find is like that's a month that's a little more intense in the energy, and probably the theme comes out a little bit clearer, like it's a little more obvious to you. Where like if you sit with one of the minor arcana cards for the month, it might be like a little like, oh, okay, I can see where that kind of weaved in here and there. This is much more like you don't need to pay attention, you're gonna see it. So definitely there's definitely nature here. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's some serious like mama bear energy. Um, and from a like provider perspective. So like bringing, but like bringing what's necessary to who it's necessary for. And um and like in that kind of in that space, there's um it's not to say that all the like the softer nurturing is not still important, but there's almost a sense of like just do what needs to be done, and then take care of yourself, like, and then so that if you can do what needs to be done, everyone's fed, bathed, and dressed and housed, then that's enough for this moment. Like that's enough for them for this moment. Like the focus needs to be on you. um yeah, that's yeah. Okay. If something comes back up on that one, that's what I'll come back to it. But that felt like enough. Um, February is the Four of Wands. And so wands usually kind of correspond with spiritual connections. This card is very, there's a lot going on here. Uh, I like the naked butts.
I do.
Um, it's like, it's a very vulnerable space, but um, it's like there's vulnerability that can mean weakness. Like it can be like you're in a place where you're more susceptible to harm. This is like vulnerability that leads to strength.
Mm.
And it's like it's a very private experience, but it also like super cosmic. Like private in terms of the world, people around you are not going to be really understanding what's going on, but you are going to be having just like these, like, I mean, like fucking butterfly wings and like going up to the heavens, like, and the embracing, like opening the chest, that is a huge like display of um like if you ever see those like job coaching interviews where they're like, like expand outward before you have your interview so that you're like creating this energy of expansion within yourself. And then you're not like responding from like a place of fear or crouching or,
Right.
going internal. It's like you're like setting your shoulders back, opening your chest, like opening that heart chakra. Um, and it like, it's gonna meet some things in February. Uh I I'm just like putting it out there that if there's any kind of plant medicine like hallucinogenic that you've been thinking about, that would be a good month for that.
Okay.
uh I have to tell you a really funny story about that. So I'm in naturopathic medical school. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but it's basically med school on steroids. We learn all about plants and nutrition and physical medicine and spinal adjustments, all kinds of things. Um, and sometimes I'm just so we were talking about microdosing yesterday, and a couple, like somebody brought it up that she was microdosing and she was like seeing all these things. I'm like, I don't think it was micro, honey. I think it was like maybe medium sized. And the other person's like, oh, I've microdosed too, and I've never had it. Like I just mostly cry. And I was like, yeah, I think psilocybin is like it's a really expansive, like it really helps you access those things. And she was like, "Oh, I haven't tried psilocybin." And we're all like, "Then what are you microdosing?" She's like, "I don't know, mushroom. What's mushrooms?" And we're like, "Psilocybin." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't even know that's what I was taking." And I'm like, "Honey, this is literally what you're studying." Please. Oh man, it was like a big light bulb moment for her.
Oh
Anyway,
my gosh. No, it's so funny. It's wild because right now I have two clients. One is she's training to be able to like you know give ayahuasca and like hold those retreats, and then I have another one who is a retired nurse, and she's all about plant medicine. She has been for years, and she's been now sort of like dabbling and like microdosing and stuff. I'm like, it's all around me, it's all
yeah, yeah.
around me.
Well, I started a podcast for our profession, and the one of the people I interviewed for this season, I'll send it to you when it comes out. She has been working with ayahuasca and psilocybin for years and ketamine therapy,
Yeah.
and so she stays up on the research, and she's like, it is really fascinating because they are showing that like parts of the brain are lighting up that aren't typically lighting up if you're not using that medicine.
Yeah.
And so I actually, if you're not working with, I'm trying to get away from words that are like exploitive.
Mm.
Um, but if you're not working with that medicine in that moment, your brain is just working differently. And so I think it's worth exploring. And there's a
Mhm.
reason I mean, there's a reason that the earth and all of the divine beings have gifted us these things, and it's our own disconnect from them that keeps us from understanding them and working with them responsibly. So, you know, I'm not interested in legal or illegal in those realms because they're still medicine.
Yes.
But if that's something that's been calling at you or something you're curious about, sounds like you have some people that you could connect with.
Mhm.
That might be the time and space to do that. And it definitely feels more feminine. Did you say both people were like more feminine or presenting people?
Oh,
That
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so I would say definitely work with someone in that realm. And just to kind of put it out there too, just like it sounds like they're both getting like training and working with it from a really responsible place, but um just to stay above board with that, like making sure the medicine's in integrity, and that there's some lineage that they're working with, especially with ayahuasca, because it's so appropriated. you know
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I know. That's why I'm like, "Who are you working with?" Because she's again, it's I do not feel confident enough to do anything with, like, plant medicine. I really don't. Like, other than, like, "Here, this is a really good oil to use." Me. But I know some people, like, I was just thinking about this one therapist that I met not too long ago who actually, she's like, I just got my approval for like ketamine treatment. And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, that's been in my world actually over and over. And I
And you
think,
say like plant medicine, do you mean like hallucinogens or do you mean all plants?
I mean hallucinogens, like, I don't
Okay.
know.
Like
Yeah.
psychoactive. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. I think you need to encounter them first. Like you can't work with someone you don't have a relationship with, right? If you kind of look at it, the plants are spirits. And so encounter them in some way first, and let that relationship develop, and
Mhm.
then you can decide if that's still something. And honestly, the plant will tell you if you should be working with them. You don't need to worry about, like, you don't need to like go around and around. But if the thing is about like your human design is like you're a self-projected authority, so if you find yourself talking about it, like if you have an experience with a plant and then you find yourself talking about it and you're like really excited and have a lot of joy, that's a sign for you. Like
Okay.
that's information for you that says, and that's with for anything. If you're self-projected, what it means is that you have to hear your own voice
Oh, yeah, yeah.
before you know what's right for you. Um, so just keeping that in mind. But I have a feeling the plant will let you know. I sat in ayahuasca over the summer for my first time, and um it was like I sat for 2 nights. The first night was in, like, I don't want to be dramatic, but it was intense. I was like I was like in labor breath. Like I was like breathing like I was passing something, and I had to call out for help. They tell you to call out for help. It's like
Right.
pitch black.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like I can't even, like my voice is so weak. I'm just like, help please.
Oh my God.
And but it was like what I realized at the end was like I had like passed the spiritual afterbirth of my kiddo from like 2 years ago. Um, and it was just something that got neglected in the process because of birthing in a hospital. And I'm not opposed to that. I wanted that.
Right.
But I got completely set aside once the baby was born. Like nobody even fed me. I still bring that up to my partner. I'm like, nobody fed me. Um, but it was also my doing of like not hiring a doula to be with me through that moment and help me with that process. So I was still carrying this all around. And I think the medicine was just like, you can't move forward until we can like get this part out of the way. And then the next night, it was totally chill. And because I was like, well, I have to leave here at like noon the next day. I just can't be so hungover from the medicine because had this intense experience and I need to like lay in the grass for 12 hours.
Right.
And so I had like a really chill night. I felt very supported and just like, oh, okay, we don't have to have like this dramatic encounter every time. And it helped me to really trust that the medicine like could take care of things, and that it was like surgical but for my good, you know.
Mhm.
'Cause that's the thing that someone was sharing with me is like ayahuasca is like surgical. It's like having a surgery. So it is like a lot, like very much like trimming, pruning, all of those metaphors.
Yeah.
And that can be really painful in that process.
Yeah.
But you're free of it at the end. It's like it's like fast, you know, it's just
That's
like,
what I've
it's
noticed,
gone.
yeah, with my client. I was just
Yeah.
like, "Man, there's
Yeah.
something." Yeah, and I'm one to just to get like, just sort of like feel around. It's so right, like, when you say about, like, the self-projected, first of all, but second of all, like, I really have to know people. Like, I will stay and, like, sort of, like, observe for I don't know what that is, but, like, I have to feel like it takes me a while to I don't know if it's trust or I don't know what it is, but it's like building a relationship. Like, I have to
Yeah.
trust you truly, and experience it because yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's been in my world, and even in like with my like some of the women that I talk to, like my friends or colleagues that are older than me that are now experiencing this too. Where I mean, like I would take acid and psilocybin when I was young, but it was never for spiritual awakening. It was never.
Yeah.
I didn't know that stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I'm definitely keeping that in my mind. This is February, huh? February.
It's going to be your own very own personal Valentine's Day.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
uh yeah. Okay. Um I'm just realizing there are even plants in the image.
Oh my gosh. Of course.
The same. Okay, moving on to March. All right. So we have the 0 in the major arcana, which is the Fool. Always beginning. So it's interesting that it would be after that month, because you know, the Fool represents new beginnings. The Fool is actually probably the experimenter of the tarot deck too, because um they're usually like shown as these like young people like going out with like don't even realize they have to do their laundry, like don't even they packed an overnight bag but it barely has like their deodorant, toothbrush in it, you know, they're just like, let's go on, let's go have an adventure, and they're not prepared for it at all.
Yeah.
So it's that like extreme newness, like the extreme beginning, where in reality, most of us, when we do start a new adventure, we aren't prepared in the ways that we should be because we haven't been on that adventure yet. But it's even more so for you as an experimenter. And so just really like in this month, whatever that is that feels new, like it's something is starting new. I have a feeling, again, it feels very internal. Um, it's also like, there's also an emotion. It's see deeply emotional. Like the fish is under the water here. And it's interesting because it's like reflecting the rainbow from the sky above. So there's like even a new encounter with there's even like a new encounter with something that you thought you knew or understood. Um like you're gonna see it from a new angle. Uh well, your journey emotionally is going to bring you to a new perspective on this.
Mm,
Um, but it's all very new. So it's going to feel familiar, but it's going to look very different. And so there may be some confusion through this month where uh I'm just getting the sense of like, you know, that feeling when you are underwater and everything is like garbled, like you can kind of hear sound but it's like
yep.
and you know things are a little wavy. It's like intensely peaceful though, like it's
Yes.
just so calming to be down there. So it's not that these things will be like disturbing you. You're just like gonna be like, huh, I thought like that looks and smells and feels like a thing I knew once, but it's not that thing. And it doesn't look like it. Actually, it just kind of feels like, maybe it smells like there's something that feels familiar, but it's not, um, it's really not that it's different. It's that it's a different perspective on that familiar thing.
Mm,
And, uh, the nice thing is you're like deep in the emotional waters, but it doesn't feel like you're drowning. So I would say this may be a month where you are starting something new. Something new is erupting, but um, it doesn't feel overwhelming in the way those things can feel. It actually, like, I just get the sense that there's like this part of you is like, I could do this. I got
mm,
this. Yeah. And I think that is like a testament to the internal work you've already done. um that you hit a deep emotional dive, and it um and you can swim it, like
mm, mm.
you can navigate that. Okay, moving on to April, we have this two of thunder, which correlates to I believe it correlates to swords.
Okay.
And it's interesting because she underwater. So you're
Uh-huh.
still kind of deep in that emotion, but you but like uh you hit a snag, you hit a rock here. um you're gonna feel a need to all the expansion that you felt in February, it's gonna be kind of the opposite energy of that, and not necessarily I'm getting that it's more from a place of like self comfort than it is from needing to close up again.
Mm,
The expansion is going to be there with you through life. You're not gonna, whatever happens in February, you're not going back on that. But uh, yeah, I just get the sense you hit like a bumpy place. There's something that hurts,
mm,
and and it's mm, need the need to escape is no longer there. Whatever it is that you're bumping into, you're okay with staying in it and working through it. Um, but you need to employ a lot more self-compassion in that process.
okay.
And yeah, just be soft and gentle with yourself.
Okay.
May is the star in the major arcana. Let me see here. So 5 major arcanas throughout the year. Yeah, it's a pretty strong year, I would say. Uh, May is it is 17 in the major arcana. It's the star. And I just like every image is a solo creature. It's just really like it's just really coming into that, like affirming. It's going to be a lot of like solo internal work here, and now it's like this in this scene, the star is being reflected in the water, but you're no longer in the water. You're kind of transversing over the water. And it's more of an observing place here where like in February we're like, I am one with the heavens. This is a little bit more of it's like the sense I'm getting is that it's like um this like quiet reflective space where um you're like you can see the big picture, and you're just like kind of marveling at it and like expressing a lot of appreciation for it. um it's kind of in the same way that you might like look at a painting, like where you can appreciate like the brush strokes and the colors and the textures and the way the scene is laid out, you can see all those things, but you have this like deep appreciation just like growing for the journey. This is chill month. I would say like whatever you're like pay attention to the contemplative practices that pull at you and just do those.
Okay.
If you've been in the habit of doing something in particular, don't get too attached to those. If you've been like, if journaling feels like I need to write this down, then do that. But if you're like, man, I don't have the energy, I would sit down to journal, it's not there, don't. Just let it
Mhm.
go. Wherever there's not energy, just let it go. And it may look like this person's hiking at night.
Mhm.
So it's gonna be it might be a variation on something you've done before, but you hadn't considered trying it in this way. Um, but very big picture, very contemplative. Uh, stay out of like stay out of how to say this. Protect that inner journey as much as you can. And one of the best ways you can do that is by conserving the energy to yourself. And I
Mhm.
don't mean like that you can't like be in relationship with people or like love the people that you're with, like your children, or if you do you have a partner? I didn't
Yeah.
catch that. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Like those people, but like if there's like something nitpicky, like don't fight about it. Don't get into any like comment sections on Facebook, like just anything that feels like it might be remotely triggering for conflict, just like don't go there. And I mean that in the external world.
Okay.
Interior conflict should be addressed. Um, that you should be able to sit with and confront when it happens. But if there's something that just like feels like it's like picking a fight in your external world, you're just like, I I'm not trying to spiritual bypass this shit, but I also don't need to get into this
Mhm.
particular energetic entanglement with this person or place. Um, I have a feeling you're gonna know what that means. You just have to do the work of not choosing it, like which can be really challenging. Okay. June we have uh also just want to note that it's like there's a lot of like kind of consistent in the from like March until July, like very subdued energy, um, darker colors, nighttime themes. Um, so to me, that is just kind of indicating there's either shadow work that you're working through. Well, actually, it's not either. There's shadow work that you're working through, and it's the dark spaces of your internal world, like those are, and that's not always shadow, it's just that nobody else sees it, so it doesn't feel as like bright as when we
Mhm.
think about being inside of ourselves. It's like there's just like um you get the night vision, you'll develop the night vision, but other people will not, so you'll see it and they won't.
Yeah.
That might be frustrating, just putting it out there. That might be frustrating because especially if you're transversing these like really profound worlds, like universes, the
Yeah.
universes within us are profound. It can feel really frustrating if other people don't share in that journey. So just kind of like maybe testing the waters to see who would be good to share that information with, like just like one or two people
Yeah.
who get what you're saying, because you still need to talk it out, like you're still that self-projected like authority, you still have to be able to talk it out, whether that's like with yourself or with other people, so you can hear how you feel about it. um
Mhm.
okay, bringing that up because June here is the 8, no sorry, 13 Roman
Yeah.
numerals, Flower of Cups. And this is like, I don't know what this is. This is some kind of bird. I'm gonna look it up. I'm going to the book for this one. Uh, Because sometimes, and especially with like her work, everything has symbolism and meaning.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So Flower of Cups corresponds with the like the queen in the tarot. So we have a very feminine energy here. It's like in the tarot, it's like page, knight, queen, king, and then this deck it's actually seed, root, flower, and then harvest. So kind of that progression. Um so there's also like kind of a summer energy um with this. Let's see. Yeah, okay, it's a crane. It's a sandhill crane, and it represents thorough connection with our intuition. She inspires us to see the ambiguities of a situation with clarity. This gives us access to deeper connection with the subconscious and the unseen. Um so to me this is like a culmination card. Like this is the journey you've been on. um it's now clear where you were underwater and things were kind of garbly. Like even though you didn't feel badly about it, you still didn't have a clear idea of what was going on. um April, a little bit more turned into yourself, so harder to get clarity on the outside. And then you're walking at night in the star in May. This feels like there's uh there's a place where you've come to where things make sense. You're accessing these parts of yourself and the greater like mysteries of the universe. And there is like, yeah, I get it now. I get why the journey brought me here. And I get what I'm understanding what tools I'm supposed to be using at this point. Um, and then the last part of this is connection to sacred space allows us to fully trust and follow our heart. And to me, that really speaks to the culmination of things again, where um it's like you needed this journey to feel, one, clear about your next steps, and two, that you could trust yourself. Um there's another podcast episode I'm going to send you from this chick from Australia. She has a podcast about human design, and there's a lot of what she was saying in there that I think will be really helpful for you. So um, I'll shoot you an email, or if you want to just look it up, it's Designed by You, with Hillary McVeigh. Yeah, let me make sure I get her name right. Designed as You. Sorry, Designed as You. Her last name is spelled Mcveigh.
That's so funny. That's how I spelled it. Huh.
Nice. And then she just had this episode that says why you need to become, in all caps, become the person who aligns with your manifestations.
Mm,
And so she talks a lot about how it's like this interdependent cycle of like manifesting things. It creates an alignment within you, but then you also have to be in alignment with the things you're manifesting.
yes.
And so it's a lot of internal work to create the external world, which I think is really the goal of the hermit energy, is that we are working on aligning internally, like as a collective, with what we want to see coming in the next go round. Personally, it's like the death of, insurance and
Yep. There's a lot of dying
there's
here,
going to be a
right?
lot of dying.
Yeah.
And I think that's also part of the year of the hermit for those who accept there's an invitation and an energy for everyone. So it's subtly happening for everyone. That's kind of how I see it. But those who are aware, it's an invitation to really really embrace that. And those, how to say this, like, we are already going to have gone through the dying because of that. Like internal restructuring includes dying.
Yeah.
And so we'll have already gone through that grief process and come out of it. so that when the collective really gets thrown into it for real, then that's our job, to come alongside them and
Yeah.
work and help them work through that and give them the tools for that. You especially, because you're a projector, like generators and manifesting generators, like we're really good at building things, but projectors speak to the heart of it. Like
Mhm.
that's literally what's going on. So that's why the word projector, like you're projecting your voice out to the people. So it's like this is your process of really aligning and solidifying those internal structures, and so you can be that person, and so you can be that person from an aligned versus a conditioned
Mhm.
place. um yeah. Okay, July is the 4 of Cups. Cups are yeah, I know, right? Cups are emotional. Cups represent water. So there's also like a fluidity to that. This card always fascinates me because it's like they're blending into the background, literally. And so, there's kind of two energies here. Is one that's desirable. Like, I want to retreat. I want that, like, I don't want people to see me. I just like literally need to be kind of hidden in plain sight, right? But then the other part of that is, and I would say kind of the shadowy part of that is that is like, well, doesn't anybody see me? Like I'm putting myself out there. Doesn't anybody see me? And
Yeah.
it looks like it looks a little bit it looks a little bit needy on the surface, but the real heart of it is that you want to be seen as you are. And so just being aware of that, the tug of that energy can be really helpful. Because if you're feeling a need to retreat, then retreat. If you're feeling a need to be seen and you're not, then evaluate who is close to you, and are they the people who should continue to be close to you? Or do you need to seek out new spaces, or reconnect with people who do see you? I think there's going to be a lot of reflecting in this month on, like, um who really sees you as you are, who
Mhm.
really like acknowledges that. And it might surprise you, like, who kind of comes out of the woodwork for that and who fades away. Okay. August is 12 in the in excuse me. It's the 12 of Cups, or she's calling it the Root of Cups, which is that second stage. It kind of corresponds with the Knight. And so it's this little fishy here, and there's some more underwater. It's definitely a way different feeling than it was before. Um, it's like the root is, conceptually, it is in existence. The plant is in existence when there is a root, but it's still not visible to the world. So there's still a lot of underground work that's happening here. And it's cups, so we're talking about water again, just really playing with that emotional component. um what's your relationship with emotions? How are like what's I guess, like, is this hitting like, oh shit, like I have to do a lot of our, like, what, I guess, what's happening for you when we're talking about this and everything's going to be emotional?
Yeah, I've always been I've noticed that, like, my energy has, like, gone down a little bit. I'm like, "What is that about?" Right? Like, so I'm not really I don't know. There's gotta be some sort of, like, internal something or another.
Your
Um,
energy, like, through the reading has gone down?
it just yeah, like, I would say just, like, probably in the last, like, 3 minutes or so, it's just been, like
Okay.
maybe 5 minutes has been like, "Oof." So I pay attention to that, but I'm also sick. So
Oh,
that's another thing. So that's
okay.
just another thing to pay attention. Like I don't know if that's really a sign or what. But with emotions, I've always been like highly emotional, like
Okay.
highly sensitive, highly emotional. It takes it has taken a lot for me to come to my wise mind, right? To be able to play, like to understand my emotions and love my emotions and also love logic and bring both together. Um, when I think about like the amount of work, right? Like even just that word of like work, like it's going to be work. A lot of emotions. It's like I guess what I think of is just like making sure that I spend a lot of just like a lot and not a lot, but just like very intentional time of like what do I need right now and like giving honoring that and like
Yeah.
really paying attention to yeah, just like where I could go because it does take a lot of energy out of me just to just sort of like ride the wave sometimes and be
Yeah.
okay. But I wonder if that's also more of like my inner critic of just like fighting back. And if I just allowed the process to go to just be, if I would have a different experience.
I'm gonna add another layer to that,
Please.
because in your human design, your emotional center, which is the solar plexus, is actually like undefined.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that you're really susceptible to the emotions of people around you.
Yes.
So I think like it's a really important distinction that like for you to discern whose emotions it is that you're actually feeling.
Yes.
And it may be good to start so I asked someone who's like been practicing human design for a long time. And I'm like, how do you like create boundaries? Like I have these open centers and like I don't want, like other people's like thoughts and stuff coming in. And she was like, well, the process is deconditioning. So it's really about deconditioning how you've been made to interact or how you've been told to interact with that part of yourself. And then to discern, and part of that deconditioning process is you're discerning what's yours and what's someone else's.
Uh,
And so it's not so much that you need to protect yourself from it, it's just that you need to be able to accurately identify it. And the work you're doing here is purely your emotions. So you don't need to be transversing in anyone else's stuff. And if you find that coming in, you can just kind of wait for it to pass and then come back to like, okay, but what am I feeling about this?
mm-hmm.
Um and that because that is that corresponds with like one of the main chakras, I would recommend spending some time doing like sacral or solar plexus work. Um, and that can be, there's a couple ways you can do that. You can just like find guided meditations like on YouTube.
Yep.
And those can be really nice. They're usually like playing, sound bowls at a megahertz that corresponds. But sound bowls in real life might be helpful. Um, and and then the other one too is, do you have any resources on human design? Because I have a really good one for you if not.
Not really.
Okay. The get this guy,
Oh,
Modern
okay.
Guide to Human Design.
Love that. Okay.
Um, and spend some time and there are other books too if you come along the path. Like personally, I have like 3 books and I'll go through all of them because they all say something just a little differently.
You're right.
But I really like hers because she's actually written hers within the last 5 years, and the other ones tend to be like 20 years old. And
Yeah.
there's just been evolution in the thinking around human design that she highlights. But you have 2 defined gates coming off of your solar plexus, but look at like read about the gates, like see what's actually there for you, but then read the other gates as well. They're not defined, which means they don't play a part really for you.
Okay.
Um, and just see if you've been conditioned for those to interact with those in a certain way. Like if you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's me. And then you realize it's undefined and you're like, that's not supposed to be me.
Ah,
Um, Yeah,
Oh,
that's kind of like how conditioning starts to show up. And so you can like sit with those and play with those.
I did not understand that. Okay.
It's I didn't really it's not with every center, but the ones that are um well, we're working with emotions this year. So that's obviously a center that is popping up as like a hot point for you. For me, it was a heart center. So when I was working through this, I would read the gates and I was like, oh yeah, that's totally me. And then I wouldn't have it. And I was like, I bet that means I was like conditioned to think that I should behave this way in the world. And I've been operating out of those conditioned places instead of not the places that I actually am.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so it can be really powerful when you start to play with that. But since it's an open center, I would dabble in that if you can. Another thing that keeps coming to mind, I'm like, no, don't tell her that. You're giving her too much. Is Gene Keys. Um, are you familiar with Gene Keys?
I've heard. I haven't dove
Okay.
into them.
My understanding is they correspond. There are 64 keys. You can, I would say, grab the book. It's Richard Rudd, Rudd is the writer. He worked a lot with the guy who like downloaded and created human design. But the keys, from what I'm picking up on, the keys correspond with the gates. And so you can also use that as a tool for deconditioning. It'll help you understand like what the shadow expressions look like, um, the what it would look like to move up into. He has like 3 layers. It's like the shadow, and then there's like the gift layer, and then there's like a more evolved layer, which is like more
Mm,
like kind of the transcended layer.
got you.
Okay. All right, lots of tools for emotions. Okay. September, we have the 10 of Stones. And thank God we're going to start to feel grounded more here. It's only taken 9 months, but you know, it's like a new baby. Um, and there's just like this like peaceful happiness, like you're, um, this card is fascinating because everything is defined up until the head, and then there's just like eyes and a mouth and like a little
Right.
star. So there's just kind of this like feeling of coming back to that feeling of connectedness, but from like a grounded human place. Like I am a human, I am a spiritual being having a human experience kind of moment. And I have the tools. I know how to work with them. This is the first one I think where there's like really obviously more than one being in the picture. So there's 2 chickens and a cat.
Oh,
I don't know if that'll
yeah.
have any significance for you, but the chickens are laying eggs everywhere, which I think is really funny. Um, and so it's like 10 is also there is a sense of completion with 10. It's kind of like hitting the end of the line. Um, and it's just like materially things feel like they're coming together. You have this really solid balance with the material world and the spiritual world, but then like it looks like your hands are in water, so you're also just like it's like this sense of like on my emotions have given me the or like this work with my emotions has given me the foundation I need to now move into these other deep practices. This person's like, it looks like they're doing a little bit of like up dog and yoga. Um,
Right.
so um, it's like a culmination, but it's not it, uh, it may not feel as profound as June did, where it was like everything kind of comes into sharp clarity. It's more like things are in harmony, and it might take a little bit of effort to notice that. Because
Okay.
you know I mean, you're sick now, so you might understand here what I'm saying. Like when we're sick, it's like every moment feels so um every moment feels so like a moment. Like when you're sick cuz you feel bad. So you're very aware of how you feel. Whereas when you feel good, you may not you might just like you kind of tune it out, really, because
Yeah.
there's the absence of um pain or struggle or whatever. So it might take a little bit of work just to like not I don't like the word work, but like a little bit more uh
Attention.
intention. Yeah, I think that's a good word. Like being in the moment to notice that this that the energy has shifted. Like you're drying out here. I don't need this. You're not sitting underwater anymore. And there's like a desert vibe. I don't know. Maybe you have the opportunity to go to the desert in September.
I would love that.
Might be the place.
Ugh.
I feel like there's gonna be a cat companion to you. Are you a cat person or a dog person or no animal?
Yeah, we have 2 cats and a dog.
Okay. Okay. All right. October is 8 of Cups. So um we're just, going right back into it. But there's like a sense of there's just a sense of empowerment here.
That's what
It's
I felt.
Yeah, it's like it really reminds me of the Four of Wands with the butterfly. Um but it's like how to say this? Like you're choosing this. Um like okay, so there's moments where, opportunities or growth moments are kind of forced on us. They're just happening. We didn't like walk in. We just like you just realize you're just like, man, this is like a huge growth moment for me. And you didn't like choose the door. You just ended up there. This is like, um, I choose it now. I know how to, she's like giving herself a drink from the cup. So it's
Mhm.
less like plunged into the depths. It's more like I know how to navigate this. I know the medicine I need and I take it with um like joy. So I was I was talking about it. They're talking about in the podcast I mentioned to you as well, and the other place I can't remember, but it was essentially like the way she was saying it in the podcast is like when you're on your path, when you're on the aligned path and an obstacle comes up, it's almost fun to get through it. Like you to figure out how to navigate an obstacle. There's a certain level of joy to it because it's like a problem to solve and I'm a problem solver or um it's like that. There's a sense of alignment whereas when you're not necessarily aligned or when you're on a path that's not quite the right fit for you and an obstacle comes up, it's just like dread. Like I have to get through this. Like,
Yes.
and this October is it's more of a feeling of alignment and now you choose those opportunities. You invite those opportunities for growth in because it's now just so much a part of like you recognize it as a part of your evolution. It's emotional again. We got the cups, but cups can also represent like fluidity. Um, and so and fluidity, as much as it doesn't sound like it, is a part of strength. Our strength is actually in our ability to be adaptable,
Yep.
and not in our rigidity, right? Like even in bone structure, the reason people like get fragile bones is because their bones stop remodeling and that they lose their ability to like absorb like to absorb pressure and absorb
Yep.
impact, right? And so It's actually like a really good analogy. Is like there's like a lot, you're spending a lot of this year doing a lot of remodeling so that the strength that you carry is that version of strength. Its ability to absorb impact is there. So when things hit you, it doesn't feel like you're gonna shatter.
Nice.
All right. November is the Eight of Thunder.
Ooh.
Right. Power card if there ever was one. And thunder again, it corresponds with swords. So we've got kind of this like communication, words, this card's interesting because it's like you're sitting beyond the thunder. It's almost
Mhm.
like this idea of like you're beyond needing words for comprehension, and yet you are commanding the moment. Like plants are growing beneath your hands and like stars are coming out of your hands. Like there's
Wow.
it's really, it really goes well with the card before it. It is very much that feeling of empowerment. And I think you're going to have you're going to realize the power you have and that it's infinite. And December is we're just following right along that theme. 2022 is the unseen. And I'm going to default to the book on this one. It's curious if these symbols mean anything. Okay, if the unseen appears for you, this may be a good time to honor those dimensions beyond the physical. And I would say, like, apart from the emotional, like, this is definitely a spiritual journey, like, year for you as well. And the last line is, let yourself fall into the loving arms of this colorful darkness. Its blood is your blood. Its magic is your magic. You are infinite, divine, one. So very spiritual month for you. um the phrase go forth and enjoy keeps coming to mind because I don't have access to this one for you. Like this is truly you like stepping it off the grid. And yeah, it's like beyond epiphany. It's like beyond it's beyond an experience. It's just going to be a knowing. You're just going to
Mm,
sit in a different kind of knowing. And it's really important to note that this is a reflection of where we are in our energies right now. And each of these like months is an invitation for you. So
yeah.
that December is the if you take this path, then that's where December leads, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it happens because you decided to go on the journey.
Yeah.
So that's all you have to do is just like decide to continue. You don't have to it's funny, this came up for someone else's too. I was like, you don't have to worry about making a mistake. This is not about like me saying that is not like, oh, so if you sneeze wrong, right, you're going to send yourself off into a different
Right.
trajectory. Like,
I go out and just
don't worry about getting to a fight with that person. That's not going to be the thing that takes you off course. It's going to be really if you just decide to exit yourself, like if you decide to stop or turn back at any point. um I don't that doesn't feel like that's going to be a real temptation for you though.
mm,
Like, there's not, I don't get the sense, even as much, even as like deeply powerful as this journey will be, I don't get the sense that it's ever going to be like such a deep valley for you that you're like, what the hell am I doing here? I could
right.
just like get on, that little sky thing and take me out of here. What are those called? Those like, they're like lifts, like the ski lifts.
Yeah.
I don't get that sense. Like you're going to be in some really deep spaces, but it can feel like crisis to some people who've never been
Uh,
there.
yeah.
If they've been running for a long time, they'll hit these spaces and it will feel like literal death, and they'll want to get out. And I don't get this sense of that from you. This feels like a really rich, vibrant journey, even in the times when you're questioning or evaluating harder things.
Yes. Oh, wow.
And I'm just going to scan the Emperor card in the book real quick because I want to see if anything about what she has said around this card sticks out. The one thing she's pointing out is like, as she says, a beloved majestic sea lion sits confidently on his throne. I love that. I like, if you come at this year with that energy, like it's going to be really, I think that's part of why it doesn't feel like crisis, because
Oh,
you already have a bit of this like understanding of where you are in the universe, which is like a powerful creator. Um,
mhm.
okay. A certain amount of structure is necessary for our well-being. The Emperor card may be asking you if you are in balance or if you need a little more structure. Do you have proper boundaries in your physical and mental space? And this card may be asking you to examine where you might cultivate more balance in your life, or perhaps you have too much structure. This kind of reminds me of like when you were thinking of going to the cabin, like maybe for you, it's actually relieving some of the outer structure of your life so that you can have the more of these spaces to do the internal work. Because it, with a lot of water, if you think about like water in a container, fills every crevice. And so um, when you're doing that kind of work internally, you really need as much space as possible because you don't know where that water is going to go, like where you're going to have to like, end up attending to. Um, so I think for you, this actually might be less structure,
Yeah,
less external structure so that you can work on the internal infrastructure.
that makes sense.
Yeah. How are you feeling? Anything that's coming up? Any questions?
Think so. I think this is, it's just pretty spot on of like where I've been as far as just like in the even with the emperor of just like stepping into like I have like different mantras or intentions or just like statements that I'll like focus in on, and one has been like I see myself in all my power as the loving, kind, compassionate person I am, and like stepping into the strength of that, right?
Yeah.
Like um yeah, and just showing up. This another one has been like showing up as I am with confidence and grounded radiance. Like those were the two.
Yeah.
uh but it
There's
had,
definitely radiance in the Emperor card for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, just knowing, I was like, and part of it too, now that I'm thinking of it, I'm like, oh man, more emotional work. I feel like that was a lot of the work that I did last year, or this past year of just, but that was more of like trusting my intuition. I feel like now,
Mm.
like I'm looking at it, trust knowing sort of like my cycles and my seasons and trusting it and like aligning with it. And like a lot of the energy work, took like a 6 month Kundalini, like light leader course. And,
Cool.
um, it's just been a lot of, yeah, I just feel like the preparation probably for this, right? To be able to do deeper internal work. Um, yeah, yeah, it's wild.
Do you like how's your energy through the day? What's that cycle? Like what does that look like usually?
It is typically pretty high, when I wake up. I don't want to say maybe high. I don't. My energy dips like mid morning, but not mid morning, like mid afternoon. And sometimes I will. Sometimes like I'll tune in. I'm like, do I need like just a 15-minute nap? Because like literally that will be like the
Yeah.
recharge. Or do I need to go for a walk? Or do I need to just mindfully eat or something? You know what I mean? So it's like that's how it usually is. I'm usually up around 5 o'clock in the morning. I like to go to the gym. I like to like do my journal, um and just prepare from, and then like get the kids together and stuff like that to for school. So and then my evenings are sort of like like I don't like to do a ton in the evenings,
Yeah.
where sometimes I will just be like out of necessity, like I'll just sit down and I'll do my emails or I'll do like work stuff or whatever. um but that, yeah, that shifts too. I feel like I really do like shift throughout like the year, and I feel like I was trying to like be more intentional and aware of how my, because even like everything about my workout changed over the summer, where it was. And it was so funny because you said something about like, where was it, like April to June. April to June of this last year. You said from like April to June, the theme was like um, shadow work, dark spaces, but that's for the next year. But this past year, that's where I felt like I did the same thing, where it was like I was just sort of like, I do like intense workouts in the mornings. I stopped doing that and I went into like more deeper, like contemplative, like yoga or walking or like something like that. Even that shifted, and
Yeah.
like I don't know. So it was just very interesting. I never really stopped to think about my personal cycles and how to work with them and like the flow of me.
Yeah. So that's probably the effect of conditioning
Mhm.
on your design, because the reason I ask is because you projector energy is fluctuant like that. Um and the way that I kind of heard it described is like um generators and manifesting generators will they sleep all night, they recharge their batteries completely, ideally, and then they wake up in the morning full charge, ready to go, and then they have to spend the entire day depleting that. And so that they can then like be empty by the end of the day, go to sleep, repeat the cycle. So you've probably picked up on that that's how our entire, like, at least American system is built. Like we expect people to wake up with a full battery and they do the tough, they do the hard workout right at the start because you want to start draining that battery. But projectors like go to sleep and like their battery might refill to 75%. It might refill to 45%. And it really is about like when you wake in the morning, understanding and kind of tuning into that, like, where am I? I mean, you're not going to get a number because you're not a battery, but am I feeling more full? Am I feeling less full? Where am I
Yeah.
right now? And then what does my being need to start the day? But knowing that you're going to deplete your energy at some point during the day. You're going to run the battery down. So I think part of this, like in this conversation about structure and infrastructure, is um, creating more structure so that you have those times when the battery runs down and you can just lay down, even if you don't sleep. But like sleep is a natural recharge, but like having that built in so that you have that space to like, okay, a 20-minute nap or a 30 or a 2 hour, like what is it that you need today? And allowing your it's okay to allow your like work life to shift around that. Like you don't have to do the 9 to 5 because that's what a manifesting generator created. Like you are a projector. You're going to have to figure out how to exist outside of that paradigm so that you can work more with what how you're flowing, how your energy is moving. Cuz and I know you can't dip from a dry well. If your battery is dead, you're not you're no good to yourself or anyone around you. We don't make good decisions when we're depleted. So allowing space in your everyday for that little recharge session to happen.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I remember the woman who read my human design, she was saying like sometimes I can't remember actual projection. That's what she said. She's like sometimes you're fighting battles in your sleep, like you're like going and and that's why you wake up tired. Or I've wondered too because I've said this to I have a holistic or energy psychotherapist, and I'm like I really feel like when because my husband travels a lot and stuff. So I feel like when he's home, he totally sucks out my like all my like I'm exhausted all the time. I'm like, how can I like make sure this doesn't happen?
Is it like the pacing of your day when he's home? Is he setting the pace?
Gee, I don't know. I feel
Yeah.
like I get down next to him and I can't sleep. It's just interesting. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that has anything to do with like the open, like my open spaces. What is it? My
Open
uh,
centers.
open centers. Yeah,
Yeah.
like taking in other energy while I'm like doing all this. So but yeah, isn't it? I mean, it's the majority of isn't there like a large percentage that are manifesting generators and like only a smaller percentage is projectors?
Yeah, generators and manifesting generators are collectively about 70% of the population.
Okay.
And so they're builders. So of course they're the ones like setting the schedule for the day, like they're the ones who are like, oh, a 9 to 5 work day or an 8 to 5 or a 7:30 to that sounds about right because we're ready to go. And it's just not a model that works for manifestors, projectors, or reflectors. Like they need their energies are all very unique and they need to be honored. Like manifestors, they'll in like when they're launching something into the world, they'll have so much energy because they need it to get this thing out. And then often once that moment passes, they like retreat for a few days to several weeks to like recuperate and regroup. And so it's interesting to if you do start reading about yours to look up your partner and your family.
Yeah.
And it does start to highlight like how things are working and why.
Yeah.
Like my personality is a mentor. I'm a 6, which is like I can see the big picture. I see how that's why readings work. I can do readings really well, I think, is what I've come up with, is because I can see these like bigger picture things and how they connect with each other. And I can like bring it back down for people to understand. And my partner is he's a 3, his first line, he's an experimenter. And so we were talking about this one day and I'm like, I think what's going on here is when I approach doing something, I see X, Y, and Z will lead to this outcome. And he's like, but how do you know that if you don't try it? And I was like, bingo, that is where we are so different and why this has been a struggle, because you need to approach something and go, I wonder if I do this, what will happen? And then you need
Yeah.
to do that. I need to give you space to do that without telling you, unless it's like critical. There's some moments where I'm just like, don't do it that way.
Like
why would you,
absolutely.
why would you even think to do that? He's like, I didn't. I'm just trying something. And I'm like, okay. So it does help to see like how those like
So, yeah.
relationships or like the dynamics. Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
And
that's so funny.
once you know, then you can improve the dynamics. Like for
Yeah.
me, it's like I need to step out. Sometimes that means I step out of the room. It's out of my sight because I just don't even want to get involved in the moment. Um, or like with our finances, it's like I don't need to come to him with 18 solutions. I just need to say, hey, I need you to do this, or we need X amount of more dollars in our budget this month. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, that needs to come from me. And I'm like, yeah. Thank you. You got there. And then he goes on the experimenter way and figures out what that means. And
Yes.
so it is helpful. I think it's, when we look at it, we'll read about our kiddo and just like how we can approach them and allow them to be themselves because they're at the beginning of their life. So if we can like introduce as little conditioning, at least from us as possible, then maybe they won't have to do so much work on this particular aspect of themselves later
Right.
on.
Try to pave the way a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much,
My
Christy.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Ready for some depth here.
Yeah. Some
Deep
depth and
dive.
some fluidity.
Oh my gosh, which is funny
Yeah.
because I'm doing like a metal and a water Kriya. So I'm just like, oh, of course.
Kriya, remind me.
Oh, Kriya. So it's like it's from Kundalini. So there's
Oh,
like a
right.
movement, breath work, and then like a mantra that goes along with it. And it's like
Okay.
an hour long, just like, session or whatever that I go through.
Okay.
That's like specific to just like, let's flow into this. Let's reflect on like where we've been and let's
Yeah.
create where we're going. And let's be open to the creativity. Like, well, that's and I just
It's
started that like this past week.
yeah. What's so funny to me is like our lives are not segmented. Like we just did 1 year as if it was like somehow not a part of the rest of the like
Right.
river. But it's so funny because I'm the same way and I'm like, oh, well, of course it is. I've been doing this thing over here. And of course it's like fleshing out more. We're surprised, but it's like, nope, that's not magic. Like you're creating your reality. And like, of course, what I see is like a lot of water and like you interacting with that. And yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, so
Well,
good.
it was a pleasure getting to chat with you. Usually what I'll tell people is I'm going to send you the recording when I get it uploaded so that you'll have that on hand.
Awesome.
It's unlisted at YouTube. So it's just like, if you have the link, you can access it, but other people can't access it. But if things come up or questions come up, feel free to send them my way. But I very rarely remember readings for people. It's like kind of something I show up for and then I let it go.
Yep.
So sometimes I'll have an answer, but a lot of times what I say is like, oh, those are good questions. You should like take those into your meditation. I should meditate on those questions and see what comes up. Because here's like the reality, like we both need people to reflect things to us and we need to tune into our own wisdom. Like we need both. So these readings I see as like an opportunity for someone else to help you see things that you might not have been able to do like on your own as quickly. But
Right.
your wisdom is just as inherent and strong and full, like as anyone who might read for you. So
Yes.
yeah,
No, I do. I get that. And I totally believe it. I always say, I'm just like, you are your own inner guru. I am just a mere
exactly.
guide sometimes,
Yes,
That
yes.
is it. So
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you
yeah,
for being
absolutely.
here.
Well, happy new year.
Thank
And
you.
I have your email, so we're good there. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christy.
You're welcome. Take
All
care.
right. Bye.